Okay, number 3, smile. So, one of the keys to networking is smile. Look at her, look nice. 4, be involved. 5, no opportunity. Number 5 on our handout, no opportunity has ever walked down the stairs into your basement and presented itself to you. I've tried for years. It hasn't worked for me. You have to get out. 6, be curious. I bet most of you don't know what the adults around you do. Do you? And all of you have parents, and they're currently doing interesting things or have done interesting things in the past. And it could be punching a time clock, a job, or different campaigns they've been involved in, or different people they've known, or all kinds of crazy stuff. Do you know that Cindy has been to the White House? Her school won an award in California, and they flew her to the White House. And she's met Bill Clinton and Al Gore and all kinds of stuff. Mike has met a previous commandant of the Marine Corps. That's like the head of the Marine Corps. And your parents, when you look at everybody in this room, there's a lot of interesting things, and we don't know any of it. So, number 6 is be curious. When you're talking to adults, ask them what they do. All right. 7, be helpful. Be honest. Number 9, protect your reputation. What are some ways you can protect your reputation? There's lots of ways. It's not hard. Do a good job.
Don't lie.
Don't lie. Do a good job. You know, even if you're volunteering at church, you know, to break down the chairs, right? To clear out the room, to set it up for something else. Do a good job. Don't goof around. Things you post on Facebook.
Don't burn bridges.
Don't burn bridges.
When you quit places.
Ooh, boy, that's so important. Yeah.
Go the extra mile.
Go the extra mile. Ask for help. Ask folks when you're trying to do something. Ask folks. We can ask them who they know at a particular company, or what would be a good way to go about. An example, when I was young, which is hilarious, I thought I wanted to go to an academy, you know, like West Point or Naval Academy, because it's free education. The part I didn't know is you have to be really smart, because I wasn't even very smart to know I needed to be very smart. But if you want to go to an academy, it's important to network, because that is a tight alumni group. So if you can meet an alum, they can generally point you to the folks you should talk to. Read about networking. If 12 to 15 jobs, and then the countless other things that you're going to need in life that would be helpful to get, you know, referrals and information for, you probably ought to know about networking. So I encourage you. There's plenty of books on networking, articles on the internet. Talk to adults that have networked, and then finally, try and fail. Try and fail. Try and succeed. You're not going to be great at it right out of the chute. You're not going to totally blow it either. You're just talking to people. But it takes some practice. So Albert Hubbard said, the greatest mistake you can make in life is to continually be afraid you will make one. So just go ahead and do it. Where's my clicker? Okay, so let's discuss real life examples and techniques. So I'm going to tell you some stories about me networking, and then about some other folks. So I was getting out of the Marine Corps. So I had a degree in law enforcement administration. I came from a family of cops and carpenters. That's all I knew, were cops and carpenters. I didn't know engineers, and I didn't know technical writers or anything else. I knew cops and carpenters. And I didn't want to work in the Chicago winters outside as a carpenter, so voila. I went and got a degree in law enforcement administration. My last semester was a full-time internship with a police department. And in that semester, I learned that police officers that on the department that I interned with were as unhappy as my dad. And everyone, my dad was a police officer, was as unhappy as my dad and all the police officers he worked with. And what I learned was police officers only deal with bad people, criminals, people lying to them, running from them, trying to kill them, or victims. And that's heartbreaking, the victims. It is a sad life. So at the end of my 4 years of college, I learned, what I got right before my degree was, I learned that I don't want to do that. Fortunately, college wasn't 80,000. It was only 10,000 for me back then. Went in the Marine Corps. I avoided math and science my whole growing up. And Uncle Sam is really, really funny. Uncle Sam made me an artillery officer. So artillery is the big cannons that you shoot shells 18 miles away, and you have to take into account barometric pressure and the Earth's rotation while that shell is in the air, and all these different things. It is all math and science. It was hilarious. The guy who wanted to avoid math and science is now in charge of things that like blow up 18 miles away. So I'm getting out, and I really enjoyed what I did. So one of the neat things that's unique in the artillery, in the military, typically jobs in the military, you all work around the people doing the same thing. So people in communications are all working around the same radios and all that. But in my job, I had to coordinate the guys that worked on the howitzers, that operated them, and generally they didn't score as well on the ASVAB test, which isn't good or bad. It was a less technical, kind of strong back job. They take these 100-pound shells and put it in the back of the cannon. Then we had the really smart guys that figured out the data to set the howitzer so it hit 18 miles away. We had truck drivers. We had guys that were, their specialty was the ammo. We had guys that would call in where to shoot it. They'd be down, downrange 18 miles. So what I enjoyed was all these different jobs, and I was like a conductor, getting all the instruments to play together. So I'm getting out, and there's no artillery batteries in the civilian world. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, mine and Cindy's, some of our best friends early in our marriage was this couple, and they were like 80 years old, literally. They were the coolest couple, but they were 80 years old. I had a great rapport with him, and Cindy and Margaret loved to cook, and we had so much fun. Well, I was talking to Glenn. So on my list of networking, not that I really even knew that much about networking back then, the 80-year-old from church was probably not top of my list, right? So what I'm giving a real life example of networking and how networking can happen in the strangest circumstances. So Glenn says, you should call my son-in-law. So his son-in-law is probably 50, I'm probably 25 or something, 26. And the son-in-law is in Michigan. So I'm in Southern Cal, he's in Michigan. So the 80-year-old friend from church plugs me in to a guy in Michigan. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, that sounds like operations management or production management. Okay. So, well, what should I do for that? He's like, well, you should probably go back and get a master's in business administration. And so my career was off based on, those networking pieces. Remember when we saw those lines earlier? That started with an 80-year-old. Again, crazy, right? And then I'll give you another real life example. I had kind of a first level management position, and I had this one person that was barely corporate material, like a walking human resources risk. She told off-color jokes, and she was just didn't always do a great job, and you know, but we got along real well. She actually I think she got let go of the company we were at together. She went to Chase and connected me with some people, and I love this person. She since passed away from cancer. She was like a redneck's redneck. She got me a VP position with Chase, JP Morgan Chase. So I give those two examples. Networking can happen just in the wildest ways in your life. I'll tell you this story. So there was a guy, this isn't me now, Eddie Rickenbacker. So when you guys study World War I, Eddie Rickenbacker was, World War I was the first time we had aircraft in war. It was a big deal. It'd be like today, us using spaceships in war. It's never been done. And they were developing it kind of on the fly. Well, Eddie Rickenbacker becomes a famous, we now know him as one of the first aces. He's one of the most famous aviators from World War I. He goes on and he runs I think he ends up running GM for decades as like the head of GM. But so here's his story. He's not formally educated. He's actually a race car driver. You know, one of those guys, you know, didn't go to college, just racing cars. The war starts. He joins the army. He wants to fly. Of course, he can't fly. He doesn't have a college education. He's kind of this backwoods guy, but they'll let him be a driver. You know, so he's driving like a colonel around, you know, because he's a race car driver, so they let him drive. Well, the general's car breaks down behind him, and he goes over and fixes it. Well, soon he is the general's driver, right? You're pretty good. You not only can drive, but you can fix my car so we can keep going. That general becomes in charge of this crazy, they didn't call it air wing back then, but this crazy air group. And Eddie's like, let me fly. No, you can't fly. So engines would break, he'd fix the engines, you know, he's just kind of always around. All of a sudden he gets to fly. He not only does very well himself, he commands a squadron. He goes down in history as one of the great aces